Hello and welcome to the Code 60, the show where motorsport is discussed by people who can't stop getting engrossed in it. Now, we have got quite a busy show today, however, unfortunately I have a slight apology to say on the mic quality for myself. I didn't realise that the mic output was coming from my laptop, not my actual recording mic, so if I sound not particularly great, then sorry about that. But on the plus side, Stef sounds a bit better, even though he has no idea why. But never mind. Anyway, with that being said, we've got a lot to get over, so let's hand over to when the podcast was actually done. Yes, indeed, we do have quite a lot of things to get through, so without getting into the weeds a bit too much, let's introduce my co-hosts. We have, well, given that they're not feeling 100%, I appreciate the enormous effort that they're doing to do the podcast, so hello, Lombo.
Hello.
And well, Stef is back from his racing antics, and he'll describe in a bit more detail later on. But hello, Stef.
Hello, everyone. I am back.
Yes, and even though you don't know it, but in a better mic quality, and even though you've not changed anything, so this is.
Hey, I'll take it. I'll take it. You know. Now you can even listen to my complete and utter nonsense more clearly.
Yeah. Exactly, in 1080p or 1080p sound, if there is such a thing. I don't know my technology. In the meantime, we've got a lot of things to talk about. I guess we'll maybe start. Well, we're recording this on the Wednesday, and on the Wednesday we had the sort of. Well, it hasn't been confirmed yet, although pretty much everybody is saying it is true. We'll all look very stupid if this turns out to be false, but there's nothing to believe so far that it'll be different. But Liam Lawson has had a very short. I mean, they lasted less time than Robert Dornbos did, and whilst Robert Dornbos spent, it was more of a, I think it was a substitute role at Red Bull that he did in his 3 races. Liam Lawson's two events. I don't like to count the sprint race as a thing that we should bother with, but anyway, I must admit, I feel bad for the guy in the sense that, 2 events isn't enough, clearly. But at the same time, I actually think that, in my opinion, that this might just be better for him. Because I don't think, in my opinion, he should never have gotten the seat in the first place. Not because he wasn't talented enough, but because Tsunoda was a better option just at the time. And I think Lawson would give him more time. Would be better, but that's what they decided, and well, hopefully that guy's got some thick skin about him, because he's probably going to need it now for a little bit of time. But yeah, it's I don't know. It just, I know people say it's harsh, but I think it's probably it's brutal and harsh, but I think it's for the better for him.
I mean, he shouldn't have been in that seat in the first place, in my opinion. He really hadn't. For me, he had nothing going for him that made him earn it.
Yeah.
And then the arrogance he displayed with it, I don't really feel sorry for him. Is he the issue?
Harsh.
That's something else. I do also doubt that he is the issue.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I can't really say I feel sorry for him at the moment.
I mean, I guess there is that, but it's...
I mean, to be fair, though, he's not being kicked out of F1.
No, exactly. I mean, it's...
So
that would be a bit harsh. At that point, I would really feel sorry for him, but...
he's being demoted to the better driving car. maybe it's actually a good thing.
What are the chances that this weekend, Lawson might outqualify Tsunoda? What are the there's and people might say
I think that's possible.
And I wouldn't even say it's like a remote possibility either. Like, it's probably like there's, I'd say, it's above 30-40%, maybe half to half to sort of, not that I'm a betting man, but if I were to bet on it, there's grounds, there's proper grounds for you to think that that's a not too out of the wild kind of statement to make. So I don't know. I mean, I would say good luck to Yuki Tsunoda. I mean, is it a promotion? I mean, I don't know. I mean,
It's a bit like a poison gift, isn't it?
yeah, it kind of comes with its benefits if you have a very specific style and you are able to extract a similar amount of speed that Verstappen does. But that's not. But I wish it only was easy as that.
Yeah.
At this point, I feel like we just don't know if Yuki has that same exact natural ability that you need to get something out of this car, because he's been used to being in the AlphaTauri slash whatever it's called now, which has always been easier or more forgiving or given more confidence to the driver. So it's difficult to
Yeah.
say if he will be able to adapt to a car that will be this tricky. If he has the ability, I mean, now's the time to show it for him. But yeah, it's I do have my doubts on
I
it.
think he
Just
has
as a
at
force of
least.
habit.
Yeah, I think he has some experience though, where it's like this isn't just like a rookie. This is someone in their 5th season. So they'll have a little bit more handle on like the tires and all those things, those little things that I think could maybe help you sort of adapt to a new car. Because I think we saw it probably has taken like Oscar like at least a year, if not like 2 years to get used to the tires to use them to the maximum effect and stuff like that. So I don't know. I feel like someone like Yuki who has more experience in F1 could at least, find a way to drive around some of the issues, whereas someone like Lawson just doesn't have the experience to, know how to drive around those issues in an F1 car. I don't know.
I mean, the thing is like if Yuki, and it's not, there's whilst people would want him to do well and think, that he's certainly given his recent, I guess, relative success with the Racing Bulls, formerly Minardi team, you think, that he could do well, but then if he doesn't, or if he just, I mean, to be to what Lawson did, I mean, Lawson was, unless that is a truly, a truly not brilliant car which has just got the Max Verstappen wizardry effect that he somehow manages to pull out, then unless it really is that bad, let's just say, for example, if Yuki doesn't make it out of Q1 or just scrapes into Q2, for example, and doesn't go no further than that, and he does that on a sort of, if he's given the time, a semi-consistent basis, then like, what do you do then? It's do you just, I mean, at that point you might as well just keep with the same driver, because it then becomes apparently obvious that irrespective of whether it's Perez, Lawson, or whoever, like you could probably put any driver realistically in that car, and given them the short amount of time frame they have, and ultimately at that point it is fundamentally a car issue, and no matter how many drivers you rotate around, and it does, you could put Hadjar in the car, probably put, if you put Ricardo back in, or if you put, I mean, people are talking very highly of Arvid Lindblad in the Red Bull Junior roster, and he does look like he's the real deal, but at the same time, put them in, and if they struggle, like when does it stop, so to speak? What's the point of where we go? Yeah,
That's why I sort of think it's slightly less of a poison chalice, because we're beginning to become aware that the car is a real struggle. So if you fail at it, yes, okay, fine, you don't have the skills, but to extract the most out of that car. But people are aware now that yeah, maybe the car is just not set up for most drivers to extract, and that's it. Maybe won't be as much of a career destroyer for someone like Yuki who has already driven for 4 years. I don't know.
yeah. I mean, that's how I feel. I mean, if Yuki doesn't do well with the Red Bull, I mean, quite honestly, it's not because he's, maybe he's still got a little bit of progress to go in some respects to be the complete driver, but at the same time, if he doesn't really perform, he should, in theory, I'd like to assume he would be given a chance somewhere to do well, or just be in F1 and stay in F1, because the car. Well, I mean, we've seen Gasly. He obviously won a race. I mean, there was fortuitous circumstances with that, but he won a race, and he's shown several times in with a different team and and a different car that he can be on the pace. And I guess at the moment he is now effectively a team leader with Alpine. So we know he's good. Albon's doing a fantastic job with Williams. So it's and people were saying with sort of why did they not sign Sainz at the time? I mean, obviously Sainz. I mean, actually Sainz part struggles with Williams. I mean, people are kind of saying it's not been very good for him at the moment, but actually, it's like it's just been not as good as Albon, and I think Sainz isn't having a terrible time. Yes, he can do better, perhaps, but it's not a terrible time. But it kind of just demonstrates that even if you have like a resume, or you've demonstrated race winning skills in Sainz's case in a Ferrari, and not that far off for his McLaren days, it doesn't mean that if just because he's been that successful, it doesn't necessarily mean that if he got into that second Red Bull seat that he'd have been either a few tenths off Max or matched him or anything like that. There's a good chance. I mean, we may never know, but there's a good chance that he could have been similar to Perez, or similar to how either Yuki, Lawson, whatever. So, I guess when does it stop? Although, I mean, technically, there may be a stop because the new regulations are a bit different. So maybe we'll see. We'll see next year if. Well, you'd hopefully like to imagine that maybe that in that case both Red Bulls would be a bit more. Well, both Red Bulls would be similar to each other on pace, but who knows? I mean, good luck to both of them, or good luck to both Lawson and Tsunoda for their respective weekends. And if Lawson ends up on top in the race and in qualifying, and is consistently that for most of the season, then I'm not going to say I'd be surprised. I guess just generally in F1, since we did our last podcast, there's been two races. One much more engaging and much more watchable than the other. I'm glad I recorded the Chinese Grand Prix in the end, and I actually stayed up for the Australian Grand Prix in the UK, which I mean, probably a small number who did that, but I'm glad I stayed up for that, and I didn't get up for the Chinese Grand Prix. Let's put it that way. But I mean, McLaren's showing their pace. Oscar doing a brilliant job. I mean, I'd say I'm surprised, but I'm not. But I mean, as you kind of sort of iterated or said earlier, Lombo, I mean, it's his rate, his way of trying to sort of, perfect tyre conservation and just managing the pace. He's getting better and better at it. So the Ferraris had their issues, so to speak. Any other things that you both have from the F1, or is everything just Lawson and Tsunoda?
For me, it's just the operational errors at Ferrari. Like, double disqualification for underweight and plank wear? Guys, how is this possible? Like, come on. It's not like the regulations have changed on this. Yeah, the weight has changed a little bit, okay, but still, come on.
Maybe get AF Corsa to run the F1 team.
I mean, there would. I mean, it's. I mean, I say I wouldn't be opposed, but that'd be cool to see for sure. I mean, I will say, whilst that's not so good, I think I would be. I mean, I would be interested better to see what the decision making of the strategy for the Racing Bulls is like. Well, I mean, yes, Australia was tough to predict, but the Chinese Grand Prix one of they were predicting thinking a lot of people would do a 2-stop, and as it turned out, the 1-stop was a significant amount better. I mean, it had been unexpected, but we've kind of had two races now where the strategy for the Racing Bulls has cost them a fair amount of points. I mean, Tsunoda probably would have had he probably would have at the moment, points, or his championship points would be in the double figures had it been for better strategy. And so it probably, he may be. I mean, obviously it doesn't matter now. He's got a Red Bull seat by the sounds of it. But if there's one other thing, just hopefully in Japan we'll have a strategy where if they're fast, they can make the most of getting points on the board at the moment, because they've a little bit left to be desired at the moment. I think they've admitted themselves it's not been too splendid. But yeah, I think with that we'll move on from F1 related stuff. I was going to talk about the IndyCar stuff, although I understand that at least Steph hasn't watched the IndyCar race, so
Go ahead. I might be able to fill in something. I knew there was action happening, so
there was
good
some stuff.
racing.
There was good racing. There was good racing from between, well, specifically Lundgaard and Plough with about 10 laps remaining. I know that anyone who's going to be listening to this bit will probably want some of us to say about the TV coverage blackout.
Did we miss anything though? Really?
No, we didn't really miss anything, but by the sounds of it, all the reports I can find suggest that pretty much nothing happened, or very little happened. I mean, there were pit stops, but they didn't really change the running order, so I guess that's fine. But I mean,
I did watch the race, for the record, and well, I mean, I don't really have any love for that track. I think it's just the racing that we did get between, as you said, Palau and Lundgaard and stuff. That was good. But that was kind of an extremely brief moment in an otherwise mostly static race with some strategic elements. And if you like strategic elements, then fair enough. Then maybe it was a little bit more interesting. But it was not action packed. It was very I don't know. It was like watching a chess match.
Yeah, I would say.
And you don't really, and in a way that I like watching chess. It's interesting, but it's also
Very
not
exciting.
exactly thrilling in like a sporting kind of way. Of like, oh yeah, you're really. So I don't know.
Oh my god, the disrespect to chess.
I mean, as I said, I like chess. I find it very interesting, but it's a very cerebral thing, and not high speed motorsport thrilling kind of way.
Well, it's not. You're right in saying it's not motorized. That's very much true.
Yeah.
All right, back on topic.
I don't know.
Back on topic.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it was fine. I'm not a fan of the venue, and it seems like they're struggling to find any other venues that will take them, especially in that time period.
Which track were they at? Because I didn't see it.
At Thermal Club.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. Okay.
It's mostly corners. There's not really any straights, so it's a challenge for and apparently it was also really hot as well, and it affected a lot of the teams' hybrid. Like it kept overheating. Like I know that I heard for the McLarens. Apparently there's some kind of, you can choose whether or not you want to run more or less cooling, and they chose to run a little bit less cooling, and it just led to their hybrid overheating. And that's also why it was so easy for Pelot to just get by, because they were down on power and they couldn't really do anything about it.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's just generally the race was. I mean, I think the race was better than St. Pete. I mean, not that maybe St. Petersburg was the highest bar to set, but I think it was a little better. It's I've heard people say that it was quite an exciting finish, or it was like Palau's drive at the end was impressive. I mean, yes, I wouldn't say it was exciting, and like when he was catching up, there was a certain element of excitement, but then actually, for me the excitement kind of went away when I think it was like with eight laps to go, the gap. Well, in the 2 laps prior, the gap went from about sort of 9-10 seconds to about 2, and in the space of a couple of laps, or 3 or 4 laps, something like that. And at that point, for me, the excitement kind of went away because I then quickly realised that if Palau was probably going to overtake Pato unless Pato did an incredibly good defense, which he was kind of powerless in this situation ultimately. And then once he passed Pato, that was basically unless something mechanical happened or something extraordinarily weird happened, then pretty much it was race over at that point, or race for the win was over. And the rest of the field was, there were some battles, nothing that kind of leaps out at me really. It was an okay race. The track is just too corner heavy, and it's certainly like the first sector. It's so like there's so many fiddly sort of tight corners and little chicane effect, style bits, which you very much struggle to make an overtake. I mean, the only main overtaking place was on sort of the only fairly longish straight that is on the track, and that was only really if there was a big tyre difference, which, with how the race went, there was, but it was only to a certain extent. And I would give this race a 5 and a bit out of 10 if I had to. I mean, it's 2 more than St. Petersburg, but again, like I say, that's not a really high bar to aim for. I mean, it's my opinion is on the venue as a whole. I don't have any issue with the venue being what it is. If there are people who like, let's put it this way: if I was in that position and I had lots of money and I loved racing and I just wanted to sort of have a place where I could either be by myself or with friends and family and just sort of have a nice time and watch cars go on a balcony, then I would love it. That'd be fantastic. But that's only for a select few people, and I have no problem with these places existing. That's, if people want to do that, sure. I have absolutely no qualms whatsoever with that. I'd have places like that can exist, and I don't have any issue with them existing. But it's obviously optic wise, with I think 5,000 or something fans were there. The grandstands, there was very few of them, which again, like optically, I think it has, it does put some people, especially if you're a newer viewer, it does seem, that might put people off. I mean, certainly the TV ratings. I know with the majority of the IndyCar fan base, it is a hot topic going to there, but I wasn't maybe expecting it to be something like 700. And also, it's not, if I recall, I don't think it necessarily even had to do with the 15 to 20 minute blackout that they had, TV blackout, because I think the most watched part of the race was, ironically, the bit where Palau was fighting Pato for the win. If I recall, I think it was an Indy Star article that I read or something like that I found it. So it's not even necessary that you can say that the blackout put people off, because if I recall, it means that actually more people were watching after it happened. But the only way I would be happy to see this again in the future is if financially, if this, because I think outside the Indy 500, teams in IndyCar, from if I recall correctly, they don't make a huge amount of money during the IndyCar season outside of the Indy 500. And if this is a good way of getting the money and the alternative is no event at all, then fair enough. And I can live with that.
I think that's probably the case.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I think we're going to have to live with it.
I
do
so.
wish they had, like, for me, I wish it was possible to have more exciting races at the beginning of the season.
Yeah,
St. Pete is not exactly exciting, and neither is this. If they could get another track, like a track that was actually, exciting or interesting and could provide some good racing, because I feel like neither of these tracks really have good racing. Like, good racing is not even really possible on them. So if they could get some more exciting circuits at the beginning of the season, that would probably help IndyCar. I think having a real kind of, I don't know, not a very exciting start to the season in 2 successive events is not really how you want to start the season. So,
not really. I mean, we've got Arlington, I think, early in the season next year, so I mean, we'll have to see on that. It could be chaotic. It could produce a fantastic race. We'll have to see. But I mean, there are talk of, there. I think Thermal might use a different layout if they were to have an event next year. I mean, I think the new layout would have a longer straight, or there's I think it's just a couple of long straights with a slightly curved hairpin, or slightly opened out hairpin. I mean, if that improved overtaking or just improved the actual spectacle, then yeah, I would, again, if it's financially it makes sense for the teams, then yeah, I would, I would be willing to give it a go. I mean, I know there's quite a number of people who would be not so happy in the IndyCar fan base about that, and I mean, I think there's issues with the optics, and then IndyCar fans of saying, oh well, this venue is basically sort of a venue it is, and how far away it is from IndyCar's main fan base in sort of around the Indiana area, then yes, it puts them off, and I can understand why. I mean, I guess just from some person in the UK who's watching, knowing that it's not very likely that they'll be able to go to an IndyCar event in their lifetime, or at least in the near future. I'm not really that sort of aspect doesn't bother me. If you are, or if it phases you, then you'll find you have every right to complain or say your thoughts on it. But for me, that doesn't. Really. It doesn't bother me. But yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, it's actually now 2 weeks. I think it's 2.5, 3 weeks until we got Long Beach. I mean, that's at least a prestigious event. So, but I mean, it is just like we've had three. Well, there'll be 3 IndyCar events over the space of 8 to 9 weeks. If there's any way that they can try and improve that consistently going forward, that might help, I would say. So
I was trying to read up a bit on motorsport.com about the IndyCar race, but I figured like from these articles, I really cannot bring anything because I still didn't see the race.
Look, I wouldn't recommend, like, if you've got like a spare couple of hours, I wouldn't. Let's put it this way: I wouldn't. I'd ask you to watch a different event. Like, I'd ask you to watch a different.
Wow, okay. Not even the highlights on YouTube.
Oh yeah, there's like a 5. There's either 5, 15, or 30-minute highlights on YouTube. So yeah,
I do appreciate that they have different lengths of, like, it's like, how much do you care about the granularity of this race? Is it 5? Is it 10? Is it 30?
How much would you be willing to watch? Or how much spare time of your day have you got for this? I mean, I guess it's nice for the variety, so to speak. So, oh well. Should we do NASCAR coming up? I mean, I know Steph's watched it. I haven't, but I know Steph could. Maybe you could add a little bit before we go on to probably Sebring. We'll probably do Sebring after NASCAR. So yeah, who won? Lawson won. I know that much.
Kyle Larson won from whoever came second, Alex Bowman, I think. Or was it? No, it wasn't Alex Bowman. It was it Alex Bowman? I can't actually remember.
Let me do some research as well. So that's just
sounds right. There was someone who choked at the end.
It was either Bowman or Byron. It was someone with a B. Quite sure that one.
I think it was Bowen.
Yeah, it was Bowman second.
Yeah. He looked
third. Briscoe, Hamlin top 5. So
honestly, I quite enjoyed the race. for a long time, I expected it to just be Blaney who would run away with it because the Fords looked really good, and particularly him, until his engine blew up, which was suboptimal. It was like a nice split up in strategy with like some guys splitting the stints in half. So that created some variation in the field with people catching the cars at different time and really trying to race back to the front. So that was quite good. There was an incident on pit road which was quite interesting. It was Josh Berry and Logano leaving their pit stalls while Lawson and Hamlin were already too wide on pit road. So they leave side by side. Berry goes into the side of and to the left side of Lawson, which left quite a decently sized hole in Larson's car, and so he managed to win. Then obviously veered back into Logano, and both of them spun neatly back into someone's pit boxes. So yeah, it was eventful on that one. And then I think with 10 to go, Larson was catching Bowman. I'm not sure if he would have caught. I think he would have probably, but passing was obviously something else. Until Bowman then hit the wall, lost all momentum, and Larson just managed to go around side and drive past him because he was on way fresher tires. But I feel deserving win for Larson. He worked for it. He clearly had a good car, and he was clearly very comfortable and driving back up to Bowman. He was really on the loose side. He wasn't really confidence inspiring. Like you could feel that from the moment Larson got close to him, he would probably lose the lead. So yeah, I'd say definitely a deserving win for Kyle. Unfortunate for Blaney that he blew up. I think he would have definitely been in contention. Shame for the pit road incident for the 21 as well, because again this week they were looking very, very strong. So I feel like down the road there could be another decent result. Who knows? Maybe even another win on the books for Josh Berry and the Wood brothers. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the rest of the season, and I hope they can keep up their performances.
Yeah.
And then I hope to get obviously Seabell back in a winning streak, because after the 3 wins in a row, he has been quite unfortunate.
Yeah, 29th for him this race.
Yeah, he had a spinner coming off 2 or 4. I can't even remember the corner. I think it was coming off a 2, and then I think slightly damaged the front of the car as well. So yeah, just not all around, not the strongest weekend for him. But yeah, I think that kind of sums up the cup. I didn't watch Xfinity and Truck, so you have to go on podcast for that one.
Yeah, but we can't plug anyone else's podcast. No, we can't do that. I mean, I think I do remember seeing something to do with the pit road incident. I mean, it was. I mean, Homestead. I think is a decent track. I mean, it's always hosted some okay races. I mean, would I have? I mean, I think I've seen talk of maybe having it as or having it back as the finale. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to it. I think it'd be better than Phoenix, but at the same time, it's I don't know. I just maybe just have if they could every year just have a different outside of a road course or a super speedway, then I'd maybe just have a rotating cast of tracks every year to just sort of not give a consistent I guess a consistent ending point, because I think it just adds something. I don't know. I mean, it's I have nothing against. Well, I think like I say, Homestead I think is I prefer over Phoenix, but yeah, it's I don't know. That's just my thoughts on that. I mean, Van Gisbergen's season has not been great. I mean, he got 32nd here, which I'm maybe not too surprised by, because this is a very different sort of. I mean, yes, he raced there in Xfinity, but an Xfinity car has very, very little similarities to a Cup car at the moment. So I don't know. I mean, effectively, this was a learning race for him. And I mean, I know it continues the not so great streak he's had this season, but I mean, you'd kind of expect him to have have struggles. Ty Gibbs has still not had a great start to the season. He's in 20, or he finished 25th in this race. I mean, I'm Justin Haley got a top 10, which that's impressive. AJ Allmendinger is 7th as well. That's a decent result for him on a track which I wouldn't necessarily associate being sort of one that I would bookmark AJ Allmendinger to do well in. But I mean, I don't really know what else to really say. I think you've covered everything pretty well. I mean, yeah, Ryan Blaney blew up, and also Hocevar DNF'd as well. Don't know what happened to him. I think he had
He blew up as well.
Oh, did he? Oh, right, okay, yeah. I know. I think at some point he was on, or he had a strategy call made him jump up a few places, or like jump towards the front, after being kind of towards the lower half of the order, and then I guess he pitted before stage break, and I think he saved his tires to a point which made him stay quite competitive to start at the following stage. But obviously his his engine blowing up that didn't end up mattering. But yeah, okay. I think we'll move on with that. I mean, I didn't see Xfinity or the trucks either, so whatever happened. Yeah, I think with that we'll move on to Sebring, because that has happened since we last did the podcast. Decent race, I thought. I mean, the start was, I'm not gonna say chaotic, but the start was, compared to, let's put it this way, compared to the last half of the race, it was, I wouldn't say it was a classic Sebring race personally, but it was very watchable at the very least. Obviously the Penske's got their win. Rexy won its class. The Polish bread making firm that got its class win.
What now?
And
The Polish bread baking firm?
what, Inter Europol, isn't it like? Aren't Inter Europol the Polish bread making, or like do they like a bread? They're something to do with baking, aren't they? Like Inter Europol.
Oh, no, man, that's the first time I've heard of it. Oh yeah, they do. Oh, that's fantastic. I didn't know that.
Yeah, they do. I could have sworn they were. Yeah, it's I mean, the website is in Polish, and I don't know any Polish whatsoever. But yeah, I thought they did. So yeah, no Inter Europol competition. The Polish bread making firm have got a Sebring 12 hours success in
that's
LMP2.
awesome.
Yeah, and now you've learned a really interesting fact. So that's yeah.
Bead bread, the breakfast of, I don't know, race car champions, I guess.
No, exactly. Yeah. Well, it seems to be going very successfully for them. They've won. Haven't they won LMP2 in the Le Mans 24 hours at some point? Have they, if I recall? But yeah, no, they've been, they've had a successful. Especially recently, they've been quite successful. But yeah, no, it's weird to think that a Polish bread making firm also has a racing team, and actually quite a successful racing team as well at the moment. So yeah, and who won I got no all the classes by GTD. Was it Winwood Mercedes? Was it? Did they get? I think they got the class win in GTD. Oh yeah, they did, because there was a bit of a ding dong with a Lexus. I think it was Hawksworth and probably Philip Ellis. It would have been in the 57. But no, it was, Sebring was all right. I nothing spectacular. I mean, Calax weren't maybe on the pace.
Well, the 31 was okay. I mean, it's kind of, for me, I think, I don't know. I hadn't been that impressed about Wayne Taylor Racing like in previous years. I thought they kind of trailed off, and I kind of think that form is kind of continuing. And we have the 31, which has pace, and then the Taylor cars are kind of anonymous. So I don't know who to blame on that one.
Yeah, maybe it'll just take a little bit of time, I guess, to just try and.
I feel like in WEC, the Joda team was right on it from the get go.
Yeah.
I think Wayne Taylor Racing doesn't really have any excuse, and I feel like in WEC the competition is even greater than in IMSA.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps so. I mean, I guess also just simply, Wayne Taylor Racing have had success, so it's I guess you probably with a team like that, then you'd expect them to do fairly well. I mean, hopefully they'll do well in their Le Mans 24-hour appearance this year with the car. But I guess other notes. I mean, obviously, it was the first race for the Valkyrie. It did. I don't know. I guess it did. I say it did better than we expected, albeit. I mean, we weren't really meant to expect anything that impressive from it anyway. So, well, that impressive from a sense of it was just going to be a test race for them. So, what else were what else were we
wasn't
meant?
too bad of a test. Actually, the more embarrassing thing is that the Aston Martin is like about the same pace as the Lamborghini, maybe even a little bit faster than the Lamborghini.
That was what I was going to get. Yeah, I tell you what. After the DNF, because what did the Lamborghini retire from? I mean, it retired. Was it like 3/4 of the way, roughly into the race? But they did retire. I can't remember what it was for. I'd have to research it and stuff. But that race didn't give me the confidence to think that there's. I do fear that they might, unless they find something in the last the three races that they will compete in this year, then are they gonna think yes, it's worth for next year, it's worth expanding our IMSA involvement or doing all that? I mean, I know they've got the guy who formerly did the BMW LMDH project, who's now currently doing Lamborghini's motorsport stuff at the moment. So I guess maybe at least they've got someone with LMDH experience. But I do have I had some concerns after Daytona, but I think certainly after Sebring, I now have they've maybe been elevated a little bit more, which would be that'd be a huge shame. I mean, I know the car isn't at the moment competitive, but like it's still a manufacturer backed effort, or it's just it's still a car which I know I'm probably going to sound like a broken record when I say this again for like the third podcast that we do this, but it did have pace at Indianapolis in the wet. So there is like there's obviously something good somewhere in there, but I mean I know they've struggled with weight particularly is one thing, but I don't know. I don't have. I fear for the future beyond Petit Le Mans this year. I hope I'm wrong, but unless things change, then at the moment I just don't see that they're going to be thinking that it's worth continuing. Well, like themselves continuing. I mean, who if there was a privateer, J-Lock maybe would anyone from J-Lock watching this podcast, would you be open to running it for next year and something or other? But I mean, yeah, I personally fear for it, but I don't know if either of you have any different thoughts on that. But
I do have thoughts on it, but we've already established in a previous podcast that they were not so accurate. So.
Oh yeah. Right. Yes, you predicted that they would. Yeah, you predicted that they would get. You predicted they get second at Daytona.
Yeah.
So we're saying that you're an optimist.
I was, yes. Slightly less now.
Slightly.
Just a tiny bit. Just a tiny bit.
His confidence has been shaken.
Hey, everyone has an off day, or multiple.
I mean, look, for a little bit of time. I mean, it wasn't intentional, but they were for a brief time under caution. They were in the lead. I think, well, they gave it, they rightly gave it back. I mean, I'm clutching at straws here.
That was an interesting start where it just decided not to start.
I'm relieved it was. Like the reason why it happened was the reason what happened. Like I thought, oh no, you're not telling me there was a technical issue. Like the one time when they're in the lead and they have a technical issue now. No way, please.
I'm not gonna lie. I wouldn't have done it there. Like if you want to let everybody by, you don't have to let everybody by at once. Like it caused this huge stack up on the start because no one is expecting you to do that. But
was it intentional? I thought it was just some sort of car failure happening.
No, it was intentional. I think it was like
a wave-by procedure.
Yeah, there was a wave-by procedure, and it didn't do it correctly, so it was falling behind on purpose. Yeah.
I mean, it did look like a mechanical, and I was so like, especially the commentators had no idea either. So it was like everyone was thinking, unless you're on the Lamborghini pit stand, then you were like it was just, only they would have known, and everyone else was thinking, oh no, like not now. The one time that they were like on dry conditions, like for a program with things are being talked about or rumored about them, and then maybe we'll see, because like Watkins Glen is their next race, isn't it? I think they're meant to schedule to take part in, because they're doing Michelin Endurance Cup only. Maybe we'll see something different from them there. I mean they'll have time to figure out stuff. I mean, I don't know if they're going to test at any point, but we'll have to see on that. But yeah, I think I guess the other thing before we maybe get on to the section which we call Van Gisberger, I'm still not impressed with it, and I deeply regret it. But anyway, but yeah, before we go on to that, I mean, there was the sad story of the loss of Eddie Jordan. I mean, he was before my he was a little bit before my time in terms of when his team were actually competing. I mean, nowadays his liveries, like, I mean, controversial, but for me, like the 2005 livery was, for me, their best livery. I mean, maybe the car, like their first car, was maybe the prettiest from if we just got rid of the livery, but I just like their mostly yellow car in 2005. So, but yeah, no, it's sad we lost the character. I mean, it was a very he was certainly himself. Let's put it that way. And there's success-wise, his team, given, I guess, resources, finance, and just them being I guess the last successful or like kind of successful independent outfit in Formula One. So yeah, I mean, I mostly know him from, at least in the UK, just from his punditry work, which he did a fair amount of.
It's obviously a sad loss, to lose someone in that way, and no one wants the end of their life to be like that. But he contributed a lot to F1, and I think the paddock certainly appreciates what he did for the sport, and I do too. I appreciated his colorful contributions to the sport.
Yes.
I mean, just the legacy he leaves, building a team from nothing, coming from the junior formula up to the big leagues in an era where you could see many of the older teams disappear, like Lotus, like Tyrrell, Brabham as well. So yeah, just what he built through that era, and the length of time he kept it going, is just nothing short of impressive. And the successes he had with it, winning races, the drivers he brought up, and obviously the memories he left with all the people and all the stories you hear afterwards. Can only imagine him as having been a fabulous person to have around in a team in the paddock. And yeah, it's just he'll be sorely missed. And all strengths go out to the family and close friends.
Absolutely. It's well, definitely very sad for for them above any, well, certainly above fans like us, but yeah, he certainly brought something different to Formula One, that's for sure. So yeah, absolutely. And I like the tribute that actually F1 sort of did as well. And actually well, unfortunately over here Channel 4 coverage isn't really seen as much as perhaps it was when Channel 4 initially had the coverage, because at the moment Channel 4 only do highlights bar all of bar all live coverage of the British GP over in the UK. But I did see a sort of like a tribute that Channel 4 did, and I'd say that was it was very well put together. I think it was actually voiceovered by Bono, which was not something I would have anticipated, but I think he was probably a close friend of his. So, but yeah, I think it is somewhere on YouTube, that tribute. So if you haven't watched it already, then just go and look it up, because it is actually very good. But with that in mind, we come on to the far less important and far less well, let's just put it. It's time for the Van Gisberger. For those who have not seen one of these Code 60 podcasts before, basically the Van Gisberger is a little thing that we do at the end where we highlight a little sort of funny thing from the world of racing, or just a bit of a left field thing from the world of racing, which I guess it's kind of what would usually be some kind of meme worthy content, but is probably been missed because it's from a low level series, or it's just been glossed over for whatever reason. I'll be honest, I did kind of struggle this week, but I eventually found something in the world of club racing over in the UK. I mean, club racing can have a varying amount of there's a varying amount of different championships. Some of them require you to have sort of very heavily tuned sort of race cars. I think basically there was one at Donington Park this weekend, and there was a Ford Fiesta, which had quite a diffuser.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it's that is quite a thing. I don't know what it does in terms of performance, but it's yeah.
I hope it does something.
Maybe it's
probably it does nothing.
I don't know if it's still front wheel drive. I didn't really pay attention enough to realize to know the specs of the car, but yeah, if it's still front wheel drive, I don't know how effective the diffuser is, or any of that sort of thing, or the wing, which kind of goes across half of the windscreen as well, or the back window. It's not the windscreen, the back window. So it's something. It's low. It's very low.
Maybe they're setting it up to be like it has really loose at low speed, and then as high speed goes up, the rear gets more and more stable. I don't know.
Yeah, that's exactly. It's it looks very fast. I mean, it's an interesting thing. It's just one of the very I can't remember what was the series. I think it was so it's the Classic Touring Car Championship, or its initials of CTC RC Boss. What those initials mean, I have no idea. I think it's just like, if I recall correctly, there was like an old V8 supercar that was in this race as well. Like an old Ford Falcon. I think there was quite a lot of Fords in this race, so maybe it was something to do with Fords, even though the title of the series doesn't give that away. So, oh well. But anyway, I just thought I was quite. I know you get some funny things in certain upgraded race cars, but what was that? It's is it a Mark II Fiesta?
The early mid-90s one, I think it is. Or is this late 90s already? No, it's mid-90s.
Maybe. Yeah. I'm not a Fiesta expert, I have to say. It really could be just about any small hatchback from that period for me.
Wasn't there like a badge engineered Mazda version of this one as well?
If I was going to choose a Van Gisberger, it would be Scott McLaughlin and DeFrancesco yelling at each other in the pit lane.
Oh yeah, I'm probably one of the very few people who've actually not seen that yet. I keep forgetting to. So that's probably why I glossed over it.
DeFrancesco just ran into Scott McLaughlin at the start of the IndyCar race. It was before the start. It was like in the last corners before the start, and he just wiped them out.
I think if I recall correctly, like I think it was I think DeFrancesco just had a small lockup and then just went into the side of McLaughlin. Like clearly it wasn't intentional. It was very just a I think I guess the line DeFrancesco was on was quite dirty, and given that Thermal is in the middle of a desert or is in a desert where sand gets moved onto the track, so so some lines well, if you do go off the optimum racing line, it's probably going to be quite low in grip. So it was just one of those things. So like I say, I didn't see what I know that there's something that happened between the two of them, but I haven't seen that bit yet. But yeah, no, it's it wasn't really that. I mean, ultimately McLaughlin's race was effectively ruined by a hybrid issue anyway, so not really. It didn't really affect either of their races. Although I think actually Devlin managed to get ahead of Louis Foster in the race. I mean, I think Foster was struggling on tyres, but Foster had a good qualifying, but not the most amazing of races. It's not like a terrible. I mean, yes, I guess the optics of if you're a casual fan and you see drivers colliding and crashing on, before they effectively start the race. I mean, yes, there's the optic of that's a little bit embarrassing, but otherwise, it's not a completely terrible. It's not terrible enough to the point of where it should be as talked about as perhaps it has been at the moment. But for Long Beach, if these two come into contact or they come close to each other in the race again, then maybe worth keeping an eye on. But yeah, I think with that, I think with the Van Gisbergers, you see, we get two burgers this time. I don't know how that. Well, I mean the IndyCar one's maybe a little bit more interesting than a Ford Fiesta diffuser, but at the same time, yeah, you get two of them. But right, I think with that we will end. I mean, I don't know how often we may get Stef in these. I mean, I don't know if you want to because to the audience, I have kind of sort of said that there's Stef has been doing some racing related stuff, but I think Stef, now that you're here, maybe you can explain kind of what you do at the moment in terms of your racing antics.
Well, I was away on some testing. I had 2 test days at Barcelona and then 2 test days at Spa for the upcoming GT Open season. So yeah, it's a very exciting one, obviously. And then there are a few other championships I have planned and some one-off races. So yeah, I'll be occasionally quite busy. So if I'm not here, I'm probably at a racetrack.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much. Or there's even the off chance that you might actually be doing a podcast with us whilst at a racetrack. Who knows? Or at least quite near to one. But anyway,
maybe during a race. You never know.
Maybe. Who knows? Yes.
Wow.
Live to the pit wall.
Take a break. Yeah. You're on to say to the driver, you're on your own.
I got the code 60. Sorry, you'll have to. If the tires aren't good, come into the pits and let the pit crew deal with it. I've got to talk about IndyCars and stuff like that.
Now here's an idea for you. Recording a code 60 during a code 60.
There we go.
I mean, well, I mean, not totally out of the question. But yeah, but well, hopefully, as the audience, that gives you a little bit of a insight into what Stef currently does at the moment, so maybe why we may not see them on a very regular basis, but they'll still be here, just offering their valuable insights and all that sort of thing. So, but yeah, just so it was.
We have Stef soundboard, so we can just press a button and catchphrase.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly.
I'm sure that can be arranged, And I'll always be lurking around in the comment section as well. Just to start bothering about when it finally gets uploaded to Spotify.
It will happen. I promise. I've mostly had technical issues for the past few weeks. I mean, it's not an excuse, but I really ought to do it. So yes, no, that will happen.
For me, it's easier to listen that way. You know, I don't know what it's like for most of our listeners, but for me, it's easier that way.
It probably is. I mean, I'm probably one of the very few people who don't use Spotify, so I need to get around to doing that. So it will happen, and well, ironically enough, like when yesterday or when I uploaded the previous podcast, I actually like even though I didn't do anything about it, I had a pop up on my channel dashboard to say that the Code 60 playlist I have on YouTube has actually been turned or is now added to something like YouTube podcasts or something like that. Even though I haven't done anything about it, it's just like automatically gone to that. So I mean, I'll take it if it helps. Then yeah. But anyway, yeah. So Spotify stuff will happen. I promise. I promise. Audience and to you too as well, because it's right that it should happen. And all of the old podcasts will be put onto Spotify. Yes, it may be a bit out of date, but if it's better for you to listen to that way, then that's what I will do. But yeah, aside from Spotify stuff and general racing antics, anything else that you both would like to say before we round things off, or should I just do the outro? I'll just do the outro. Right.
Do it.
Right.
Roll it.
Yeah, okay. Right. With that being said, which I didn't actually say anything, but never mind. Until the next podcast, thank you very much for watching or listening or whatever. But until the next one, until the next video, whatever it is, be kind to each other and enjoy the rest of your day.